Look, I'm just a geologist. I like rocks. I love rocks.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geology Flannelcast. My name is Steve.
Hey there, everybody. I'm Chris.
Hello, I'm Jesse.
Jesse, from now on, I'm just going to your awkward pauses are just going to edit it out. All right.
It's just going to be, hello, I'm Jesse.
I can't do it anymore. Right? Every week.
Well, he switched camera views now, too.
Well, no, the thing, my camera it keeps disconnecting. I don't know what's going on. But, but yeah, I thought that sounded more human. Did I sound like a human?
I mean, awesome.
I am a human.
Pinocchio said that when he was, I'm a real boy.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, enough bantering. Welcome to the Geology Flannelcast, the premier geology podcast. Hope everyone's doing great today on this lovely early March evening.
Yeah.
We're doing good. Steve's recovering from COVID right now, but he's still a trooper and he's got the cough a little bit. Yep. He's good. He hasn't coughed once so far tonight.
Yeah, we're hanging in there, doing well. Yeah, we had like honestly a super duper long pre-podcast little party conversation, almost argument with our Patreons about In-N-Out Burger.
French fries.
When you're way out west, as the BC Boys would say. Yeah, so if you too want to become part of this conversation, you can become a Patreon and get behind the scenes and listen to us argue about super and really important real world stuff. Like
French fries are very important. They're delicious.
Yeah, exactly. So
you can do that at patreon.com/geology flannelcast if you like us and you want to help out the podcast.
Yeah, that'd be great. So Chris, what are we talking about today?
Oh man, we got a couple topics today. So the first one, do you want to start off with the oil?
Sure.
All right, here we go.
Good. All right. So today in 1938, they struck oil in Saudi Arabia for the first time.
That was beginning of an era that day.
So if you think about it, 1938 was less than 100 years ago. Think of all the wealth, all the buildup.
Was it really 1938? Wow, I thought it would be earlier.
They started drilling in 35 and they didn't actually start producing for 3 years.
Yeah, it was like 7 failed wells or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, Saudi Arabia formed as a nation state in 1932, but they found oil in 1938 and, haven't really looked back since. It's one of the largest oil producers in the world. And fun little fact, Jesse, Chris, and I at some point in our academic careers all went to Temple University. And the founder of the geology department of Temple University was a woman named Alice Weeks. We could do a whole episode on her. She was an interesting woman. She went to Harvard at a time when they wouldn't let women in the classroom and she would have to listen outside the classroom.
No kidding. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she got her doctorate and all that stuff. Yeah. Incredible woman. But her husband was, and I could be wrong, but this is what I've been told. He was part of that team that found the oil in Saudi Arabia. And he was one of the OGs, if you will, of BP gas, BP, British Petroleum. So,
wow.
Yeah, crazy stuff. So, but if you think the Drake oil well in PA, and which I didn't realize it was 2 people, George Bissell and Edwin Drake.
Oh.
Were the first ones to successfully drill a well in Titusville, Pennsylvania. I always thought it was Drake. I mean, it's the Drake well.
Yeah.
But I just read that today.
Now, is that Bissell related to like
the steam cleaner?
The steam but he was like, I got to get this oil out of my rugs.
Maybe that is.
He came up with an oil.
We could speculate.
I was just I just did some quick. Yeah. So you were going to say that was in 18.
That was in 1859. So 79 years from when they discovered oil in U.S. and then they discovered it in Saudi Arabia.
So in the Middle East itself, there was a well that was drilled in Bahrain in 1931, producing in 1932, by Standard Oil of California.
Bahrain.
Yeah. Well, it was operated by the Bahrain Petroleum Company, which operated out of Canada by Standard Oil of California.
That makes sense. That
sounds
good.
about right.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was no tax loopholes involved with that.
Yeah, how do you avoid taxes? Well, let me show you how.
First, we go to Bahrain. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Fun oil facts here. You guys know who the largest oil producing country in the world is? I'm sure you guys know this.
Is it the US?
It's the US of A, baby.
Yep.
17 million barrels per day as of 2019. So this is a little, that's close enough to real.
We're not always number one. We've ramped up production at times and we've cut back production at times.
And globally oil sort of dropped the past year, but I just actually saw a headline like yesterday that oil production is now above pre-COVID levels.
Really? Then why is my gas price going up?
There's a lot going on with that. It's not just about oil. A lot of politics, windmills. Taxes involved too, and
Yeah, and
there's a lot. But is there now? See, I'm not an expert in this, but when they say like barrels of oil per day, isn't there something about it also includes natural gas as well, like oil and natural gas together, and that's how the US is number one? Or isn't there some kind of, it's not just oil by itself?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that either.
Yeah, and I guess we talk about oil coming out of the ground versus what that oil gets used for in terms of being refined for gasoline or other fuels, or
1%, or it's some small margin goes to plastics.
Yeah, I think that number will probably, or at least that proportion will go up as sort of there's this push towards electric cars, but the need for plastic is only going up. It's not like we're cutting back on plastics. So the petrochemical industry, 1 barrel of oil is 42 US gallons.
Yes. That is for those of you who are listening, possibly studying for your PG exam, that is something you need to know.
How many gallons are in a barrel?
Yep. Because you'll have to calculate basically what is this investigation worth? How much, how many proposed barrels are in the ground, and what is the price of a barrel? And, you need to know that equation.
That.
Yep.
The price is it still tied to West Texas Intermediate?
Oh, that I don't know.
Light sweet crude.
So, but yeah, interesting. And it was the standard, I think it was Standard Oil who came up with that 42 gallons, because they used to ship it in barrels of all different sizes. Each company would make their own size barrels. Huh. And then Standard Oil said, nope, this is the one we're using. They painted them blue, and that was it. Here's your standard barrel of oil.
I always like to think of it as just they hit a gusher and there's oil shooting out, and they're like, grab something to catch all this black gold. It was whatever they had sitting around. And
usually they don't like having the oil spill over the ground. A lot of people start getting pissed off when you start, having oil get all over the place. All right, here we go. Fun trivia. Let's see if we can get this. In 2019, about 69% of total U.S. crude oil production came from 5 U.S. states. So this is just obviously just the United States. What were those 5 states that made up 69% of U.S. oil?
Texas.
Okay, Texas is number 1.
California.
No, that's Oklahoma. Not on this list. I thought California was on there.
Yeah, Oklahoma.
Maybe this list.
Yes,
Oklahoma's on this list.
Wyoming?
Nah. The other ones are kind of, well, Colorado, North Dakota, New Mexico. But I thought California was one of the biggest producers. Maybe this list isn't right. Anyways, disregard what I just said.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but yeah, so I just thought that was interesting that I didn't realize how, I know 1938 was not that recent, but I would have thought Saudi Arabia found oil before then. But
yeah,
so from what is 1938 to now is what?
83 years,
something like that. And it was almost that time between when the Drake oil was drilled and when Saudi Arabia. That was 79 years.
Yeah, 79, yeah.
So
real fast, just about what I just said about that list being incorrect. It actually looks like that list was correct.
Wow.
So Texas, yeah. So here's another site I'm looking at. Texas was number 1 by far, and then North Dakota, then New Mexico, Oklahoma, Colorado, Alaska, and then California. So California was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th place.
Where's good old Pennsylvania fall on that list?
Actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17th place.
Really?
6,324 barrels. Oh, I'm sorry. Times that by 1,000.
Yeah. But I'm just surprised that we're 17th. I would have not put us that low.
Yeah.
But I guess most of our stuff is gas at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, especially with the price of oil being so low.
Yeah. It's tough to get out of these tight, deep rocks. So anyway, I thought that was an interesting little tidbit that I saw in the news today that Saudi Arabia and a little tie back to Temple University, our alma mater.
Yeah, it was really cool.
So,
so real fast before we move on, I read a very interesting fact, and this is completely off topic, right? And I didn't even talk to you guys about that. Just going totally off script right now, but fun random geology fact that I read this week. All right. So I'm going to jump into earthquakes for a second. All right. And everyone knows about the old school Richter scale, right? So we don't, that's to measure the magnitude of an earthquake. It's a bit of it's the older, we don't use the Richter scale anymore. It's the
moment magnitude scale.
Moment magnitude scale. It's been kind of updated a bit, but so Charles Francis Richter was the gentleman's name who took he didn't take all the credit, but that's all the credit's been given to him for this. But there was actually
to be called Chuck
Richter. Yeah. So he's at Lamont Doherty at Columbia University, but did you know that there was somebody else that was on that scale that helped develop that scale? And this gentleman's name was Benno Gutenberg. I think he deserves some credit.
He does have some credit. The Gutenberg Discontinuity is named after him.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, he should get more credit.
So interesting story. The reason that he doesn't get that much credit with this is because he was Richter's like mentor at Lamont Doherty, and when they developed this Richter scale, Gutenberg, he's a little elderly. He had bad vision and bad hearing. And so whenever the press asked him to explain their work, he always said, talk to Richter, because he had problems communicating because of his, lack of vision and lack of hearing. So just over time, everybody gave Richter the credit for that, the Richter scale.
Well, let's face it.
Earthquakes.
How many times has an advisor stolen a grad student's idea and run with it? It's okay for it to go the other way around every once in a while.
Yeah. So the Gutenberg discontinuity is right at the core mantle boundary. So that he kind of did work on that, because it's like it's not a set bound, it's sort of amorphous, because I think there's like partial melting going on. But yeah, he did. In looking at his life right here, he served in World War One as a meteorologist supporting gas warfare operations. Maybe.
Oh,
so maybe he didn't deserve the credit.
Yeah,
No, he's watching the weather patterns and saying, all right, don't gas them yet. The wind's going to come back at us, right?
Just wait, hold it.
Well, so even Richter will say that the majority of the data they used for, to develop that Richter scale actually came from Gutenberg. And so kind of a fun little fact. I was reading that last night. I was like, didn't know that. The more you know.
There you go.
That's interesting.
Yeah. All right. So
way to just throw that at us, though, Chris. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Is that sarcasm, or is that just, once again, me holding this podcast up single-handedly?
It's sarcasm now, buddy.
All right. Onward to the main topic.
Yeah, another topical news-ish story, right?
Yeah. So there is a volcano in Indonesia called Mount Sinabung. And we've talked about this volcano, I think a fair amount on the podcast. It's a very active volcano. And currently just erupted yesterday. It had a pretty nice size eruption. What was what we had pyroclastic flow from the
I don't know about it definitely shot ash like 3 miles into the atmosphere.
Okay.
If just real quick, if you may know Mount Cinebong, because our guest from last week's episode, Matt Sophie, was previously on, because he's done work on Mount Cinebong. And so we've done a show with him talking about it.
Yeah.
That was back
in the day.
6 years ago.
Yeah.
Way back. So yeah, we figured we kind of for the episode, we kind of talk a bit about Mount Cinebong, a little bit about Indonesian volcanoes. And so Mount Cinebong is a pretty active volcano. It was dormant for a long time. But it basically kicked back on in 2010, and has pretty much been erupting fairly often since 2010. So about 11 years now.
A couple times in 2013, a bunch of times in 2014, 2015, it took the year off.
Yeah, well,
and 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21.
So let's, before we get into Mount Cinebung, I think we should talk just a little bit about the general tectonic setting of this part of Indonesia. So Mount Cinebung is on the island of Sumatra, right? And so, Indonesia by itself it has the most active volcanoes in the world. And I want to say off the top of my head, we can look this up right now, but I want to say it's like 300 active volcanoes right now. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. Probably.
Yes, I believe so.
You could have said any number.
No, but for some reason 300 is sticking in my head. But yeah.
Why do you get these volcanoes?
Oh, wow.
I'm glad you asked.
There is a subduction zone that is causing these volcanoes. So
wait, subduction causes volcanoes?
Yes. Is this the first time you're learning this?
So it is. I should mention it's like a superly tectonic active area. That was not a good string of words there.
No, it's good. It was good.
And if you know it from maybe anywhere geologically, it's the 2004 earthquake and tsunami.
Yes,
it was in Sumatra here, in sort of this area. Are you going to talk about the plates? You want me to tell you the plate names? Do you got the?
Yeah, I mean, go ahead. it sounds like you're on a roll.
Well, so there's it. So it's in the Indian Ocean, right? But there's actually a tiny little microplate that's subducting, and you have what's called another little microplate next to Eurasia called the Sunda plate and the Andaman plate. And so you have these little microplates that are subducting, and then you have the Indian Ocean, basically, that's also subducting as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so the Sumatra plate that's a transform fault, right?
Well, there's a lot going on. There's actually yes, there's in the.
I just got confused when I was looking at it.
Yeah,
I had it. Thought I had it. I didn't.
Okay, so the island of Sumatra itself has a transform fault, kind of going down the western. So Sumatra is kind of it's got elongated in like a north-south-ish direction. I'd say like northwest southeast kind of direction.
Yeah.
It'd be like the long axis, you could say. And going down that long axis, more on the kind of on the western side, is a transform fault. But just off the coast, maybe 100, 200 kilometers west of the island of Sumatra is the Sunda Trench. Is Sunda or Sunda Trench? Sunda?
Sunda, I guess Sunda. I was saying Sunda, but maybe
Sunda.
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 Feel free to leave a comment on YouTube.
Yeah.
So
if you're from South Philly, it's the Gazunda.
Gazunda. So this is where we have the active subduction occurring, and it's actually this subduction boundary. It continues along the next island southeast of Sumatra is Java. Once again, very volcanically active.
The land of coffee.
The land of coffee, and then the Sunda Trench turns into they call it the Java Trench down there.
That's where computer code comes from.
Okay.
I'm on fire, man.
Hold on.
Don't do it.
I think they just phased out Flash.
Yeah, Flash.
Flash is phased out.
Where's the Flash plate? Nope. Sorry.
Hold on. I got my cricket sounds back.
Sorry.
I'm not gonna. So back in the old school days of the Flannelcast, it was what the platform we used to record the podcast was much easier to have sound effects, but now we do this off of Zoom, and it's a little trickier with the sound effects. I did find a way to do the cricket sound effects, which if you listen to the early days, we use fairly often, but I haven't used it in several years.
What's this we stuff? You used it.
You're right. Why am I giving you guys credit? I did it.
Yeah. Chris never had a bad joke.
Never. All right. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about the subduction underneath Sumatra, and that is causing all these volcanoes that we see along the western margin of Sumatra. Okay.
Right. So the plate's subducting underneath, and it's dragging down volatiles, and you're getting mixing of stuff, which is reducing the melting temperature of stuff, which then
so as it subducts,
he's right.
Skip over it. So I was gonna
as the plate subducts, it's been sitting on the bottom of the ocean, so it's all soggy and wet, and so as it goes deeper into the earth, it heats up because it's hot inside the earth, and so all of that it dewaters and degasses. So those volatiles, Steve was right, that those volatiles come off and they rise into the overlying plate. And the overlying plate is hot, but it's not hot enough to melt rock. But by adding these waters and adding this water and adding this gas, it lowers the melting point of that overlying rock. And it's what we call flux melting, and that's where you're going to get your magma from.
Yeah.
So the magma has a low temperature, which I think is important.
So so for Mount Cinebong, it is a stratovolcano, right? Very, very explosive volcano. You get these next to these subduction zones, just like you get the stratovolcanoes in the United States along like Mount Rainier up in the Cascades, right? St. Helens, all those guys, all associated with the subduction zones. So that's what we have going on down here in Indonesia. And the majority of rock that makes up Mount Sinabung is andesite and dacite. So andesite, if you ever took like an intro to geology class, you've heard of that rock. It's an intermediate rock, which on the scale from felsic to mafic. Intermediates in the middle goes felsic, intermediate, mafic. I don't know why I said it that way, but intermediates in the middle, right? So
salt and pepper.
So it tends to it's a volcanic rock, so you're not going to see the individual grains or the individual grains in that rock, or the individual minerals. Stuff cools very quickly. And so if you never heard of the rock dacite, that's another type of volcanic rock as well. And that's kind of in the middle between andesite and rhyolite. So in case if you don't know anything about the different types of rocks, especially like igneous rocks, rhyolite's considered a felsic rock. It has a lot of quartz in it, not that much we call it ferromagnesian minerals, iron and magnesium, right? Rhyolite is actually it has the same chemical composition as granite, just rhyolite cools really fast during volcanic eruptions. So that's on the felsic side of things, and dacite is basically in between your rhyolite and andesite. So that's the type of rock that makes up Mount Cinebung. So this thing, like we saying, it's really active. I want to say it's one of the, I believe off the top of my head, we gotta fact check this, but I think it's one of the most active volcanoes on Earth right now. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
I know it's always going off.
There's a couple, I think, on the Kamchatka Peninsula that erupt more frequently. Mount Redoubt maybe in Alaska, but
it's
got to be up there.
It's just very, very active volcano. So some of the other things that we can kind of talk about with Indonesia or the Lake Toba supervolcano. So Cinebong is not too far away from this the supervolcano. It's actually like 40 kilometers away, about 25 miles or so.
All right, Chris, what makes a supervolcano super?
Ooh, good question.
It's I should say the Lake Toba supervolcano is actually a caldera. All right.
Right.
And so what happens is the volcanic eruption occurs and it empties out the magma chamber below it, and the whole thing just kind of collapses in. And you see these really, really big lakes that kind of just fill in that caldera, that collapsed area. So
because it was such a huge eruption, like it just
it's a pretty super eruption.
It basically instead of like you see Mount St. Helens and like kind of half the mountain went away, a caldera eruption like essentially just totally explodes and then
it kills the mountain basically.
And then exactly, like Chris, the mountain's gone. Now you're just left with like a crater and it fills in.
Yeah. So this
Yellowstone is an example.
Yeah, Yellowstone. Yellowstone is really interesting because geologists didn't realize the size of the caldera until they started doing. So they started doing like LiDAR surveys of the area, because it was such a big caldera that you just couldn't see it from the ground. You actually needed like satellite, remote sensing data to actually see that caldera that's associated with Yellowstone. Yeah, Yellowstone. It's packed a punch back in the day.
Yeah, so I don't know if the term super actually has is it quantifiable, or is it just basically a caldera?
Yeah, it's just
a big honking volcano.
Can't define it, but I know it when I see it.
There you go. If you have to ask, you can't afford it. So super volcanoes.
So
you don't want to live near a super volcano. Let's
no,
put it that way.
You don't want to live. I mean, you want to keep your distance from volcanoes in general, especially when they're like active volcanoes. Well, I shouldn't say that, because like, the Hawaiian the Hawaiian Islands, like the other year, they kind of, acted up a bit, got a little finicky, right? And but for the most part, you don't usually hear people, dying from the Hawaiian volcanoes unless they do something really, really stupid, But so I want to throw some fun facts about this Lake Toba supervolcano. So this thing erupted between 69,000 and 77,000 years ago, with some recent radiometric dating suggesting that it was closer to like 74,000 years ago. And it is the largest known explosion on Earth within the last 25 million years.
Whoa.
Yeah, so that means it's bigger than Yellowstone. Yeah. And when it last erupted, it was estimated that it was an 8 on the VEI scale. So the VEI scale is a volcanic explosivity index. So 8. So like I believe 7. I'm looking at it now. 7's like Yellowstone eruption. So 8's here it is. Yeah, 8 means it's considered a mega colossal volcanic eruption. Mega colossal. That is just so something like this occurs once every 50,000 years. All right. And
so what you're saying is we're overdue.
Yeah, we're overdue.
That gracious. Actually. Oh man, I'm looking at the volume of ejecta with this, and it's greater than 1,000 cubic kilometers of material.
Wow.
Man, this is a big lake. Holy moly.
Yeah. Don't mess with Indonesian volcanoes, man. They will.
Yeah.
They pack a punch. It's no joke. No joke. So I thought that was a fun little.
That was a nice little detour. I like it.
Yeah. So the last time Yellowstone went off like this, when actually there was a VEI 8 eruption at Yellowstone, that was 630,000 BC. So it was a little more than 500,000 years ago, between 500,000 and 750,000 years ago. But this was 74,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And actually, throwback is this. The most recent VEI 8 is as high as it goes on the, at least for the VEI index. The most recent eruption that had an 8 on the VEI scale was Taupo from New Zealand. Where's Sophie at? We could have used them right now.
Wow.
That was 25,000 years ago. Let me double check that.
Really coming full circle here.
Yeah.
Matt, I believe Matt Sophie just like, yes, I'm interested in the position, but is it within spitting distance of a massive caldera? Yes, no? Okay, great.
My odds for a super volcano?
Yeah, the last 2 places he worked in Indonesia and then New Zealand. So yeah, this one went off. Taupo went off 26,500 BC. Yeah.
All right.
What is 26,500 BC? What is that number?
Yeah.
26,000.
All right, there we go.
500. Excuse me.
It's like my grandfather used to say, yeah, it's $1.385.
Wait, $1.385?
Yeah, exactly.
26. So is it?
26,000 years ago.
Well, BC.
So 28,000 years ago?
Yeah, 28,000 years ago, basically, yeah.
You're throwing me here. I'm really confused.
I mean, would it be a Flannelcast episode if one of us wasn't confused at one point? So, yes, Indonesia is very, very volcanically active.
So on that VEI index, do they give you like 8.2, 7.9, or is it just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? Sorry, I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, no, I think it's just I've just seen it as just whole numbers, and it's kind of just a kind of a describer more than anything else of just
just how big.
Yeah.
How messed up are we going to be?
Kind of what you can compare the volcanic eruption to. So they have, like basically on the VEI scale, they have like famous, like well-known volcanic eruptions. Like for example, like a VEI zero, a zero, I should say, excuse me, a zero on the VEI scale is the classification is like a Hawaiian eruption.
Ah, gotcha.
All right. So it's it's an effusive eruption. Also, Hawaiian eruptions can also have like a 1, or a 1 will be like a Hawaiian eruption / a Strombolian eruption, like from Stromboli in Italy. Kind of.
That makes sense.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah.
What was the VEI say of Mount St. Helens? Do you know?
I was just gonna say that. I think it was 5. Okay. 5.
The 1980 eruption was 5.
5. Okay. Vesuvius was a 5 as well. Yeah, there's St. Helens in 1980. So yeah, it's just kind of from my understanding, it's just kind of just give an example.
Now, can we circle back real quick? You said andesite is aphonetic, but can't andesite be aphonetic or porphyritic? Can't you get crystals in andesite? Isn't that kind of what makes it the salt and pepper a little bit? Am I wrong?
Yeah, I mean andesite. I mean, usually it's aphonetic. I mean, you can get the porphyritic texture where you see like the larger grains inside, like more like a matrix of microscopic, or more like a homogeneous kind of rock. But
it's sticking in my head. I'm like, that doesn't sound right. Is that right? And
but I guess the point I was trying to make is it's from volcanic eruptions. So when you're dealing with volcanic eruptions, it has very fast cooling times.
Yes.
The lava that's associated with this stuff has very fast cooling times as opposed to.
But I wonder if it's yeah. All right. I'm not even gonna wander out loud because I'm just gonna make myself sound like an idiot.
The porphyritic texture is more about just kind of you get these kind of like these like chemical reactions where some like you like in andesite you'll get like hornblende grains growing much fast faster and larger due to just the chemistry of the whole situation of the lava you're dealing with.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I always thought it was just 2-stage cooling.
That's what I was going to say, and I didn't want to sound like an idiot.
There's something about water.
I'll jump in any day.
I'm pretty sure off the top of my head, there's something that water gets in there.
Doesn't that makes the really big crystals in pegmatites, right?
Yes.
But again, don't trust me on igneous metrology.
So there was a friend of ours from the show. His name was Dr. George Meyer, and he did his PhD at Yale University. And he said one of his questions, and I'll never forget it, from his PhD defense, or not, your candidacy defense, whenever when you become a candidate, and it was describe a porphyritic basalt. He's like, well, there is no porphyritic basalt. There's no such thing. And they're like, wrong, get out.
Jeez.
And the answer is there is no porphyritic basalt, but they wanted him to explain how it could happen. Like basically describe the impossible.
Jeez.
And so I felt terrible, even though that happened before I was born, but still. Anyway.
Well, pegmatites are a little different because you're dealing with intrusive rock with that stuff. And
maybe it was a pegmatitic basalt. Either way, porphyritic, pegmatitic.
Yeah, I was going to say because I think you can get porphyritic basalt. You can get
amygdaloidal basalt, which is where you have vesicular basalt, and where you have empty pore space from gases, and then those pore spaces fill in with a secondary mineral.
Right.
So the basalt has like large grains from this infilling. But I don't know if that counts. I got that question at my proposal, comprehensive exams.
For your master's or your PhD?
My master's. Yeah. Dr. Meyer handed me an amygdaloidal basalt. That's why I know it. Yeah.
Good times.
So, the other thing that we can talk about with Indonesia, we're on this topic of tectonics with Indonesia, and Jesse kind of hinted, or he mentioned this like within the first couple of minutes of the podcast.
I did.
Was the Boxing Day tsunami.
Oh, yes, I did.
So this area is very, very tectonically active. Like Jesse said, there's a lot of, a lot of these island arc systems, or the whole thing's like a giant island arc system, the whole country of Indonesia. And there's a lot of tectonic plates there that are just kind of grinding up and slamming into each other. And when that happens, you get lots of earthquakes. So, we didn't even mention this. It's like one of the most obvious things. Indonesia is located on the Ring of Fire, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the Ring of Fire is the whole perimeter of the Pacific Ocean, basically, in a nutshell. And this is where you get the majority of your volcanic activity, hence the Ring of Fire name, and also lots and lots of earthquakes. So usually earthquakes and volcanoes kind of go hand in hand. They're related. So back in 2004 on Boxing Day, which is the Canadian holiday of December 26th.
St. Stephen's Feast Day.
It's also a UK holiday too, right?
Boxing Day's UK?
I think so.
Oh.
It's the day the help at the manor house would get presents from the lord and lady of the house. They would get their boxes, their gifts, because they were working all Christmas Day. And so the day after was when they would get their gifts.
No kidding.
Haven't you ever seen Downton Abbey? Come on.
I'd never watched Downton Abbey.
Oh, you're missing.
All
it's
of
good.
my knowledge
Apparently.
of British aristocracy comes from Downton Abbey.
All right. So, the earthquake here, I believe, the earthquake, the Boxing Day tsunami in 2004 was off the west coast of northern Sumatra. And so it hit they figured the earthquake was about between 9.1 and 9.3 magnitude earthquake. That's a big freaking earthquake.
Huge.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like enormous. What's the strongest one ever recorded was it in Chile or is it Alaska?
I want to say Chile. Yeah, 1960.
1960 in Chile, and that was like 9.5, 4?
No.
Between 9.4 and 9.6.
That's ridiculous. Oh my goodness. Yeah, and so these
and
9.0
just real quick, speaking of the Richter scale, and it's a
modified
scale.
Mercalli that we're talking about here. Okay.
No, it's moment magnitude.
Moment magnitude.
Oh.
Modified Mercalli. It's like, how did you feel about it?
Did it wake you up?
Yeah.
I love.
Did you go boom?
So just for reference, if you're unawares, modified Mercalli is a way in which it's a qualitative assessment of how intense it felt.
Oh yeah.
And the way in which they measure that, the USGS has a survey that you take. If you go on the USGS website for earthquakes and you click on any, they show a list of like earthquakes as they happen. You click on any of them and there's a little button that says, did you feel it? And you click on it and it'll give you a survey. And I love bringing it up in class because some of the questions are pretty goofy. Did your plates fall off their shelves and shatter?
Yeah.
Did you run out of the house screaming?
Yeah, seriously, it's questions like that.
Yeah.
But we're saying that a 9.2 is huge and a 9.4 is ridiculous. Well, it's a logarithmic scale. So when you go from an 8 to a 9, log base 10 would be, if you go from an 8 to a 9, it's not 1 times bigger, it's 10 times bigger. So those and the moment magnitude scale, is it a true log base 10 scale or is it slight? I don't think it is.
Log 33, I think.
Something
base 33.
It's so going from like an 8 to a 9 is a gigantic difference, not just 1 bigger. It's not like Spinal Tap. Well, we go up 1 more to 11.
Yeah, and then when you go from like each number, there's 30 times more energy released.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
well, anyways, back to Indonesia. This is, so we feel anywhere between 9.1 and 9.3. At that point, it's just like whatever. That's just ridiculous, and
the tsunami itself was like 50 to 100 feet high.
Yeah.
about 228,000 people died.
It was about 250,000 people. I thought I want to. Okay. Yeah.
And it was, and the sad thing about it is, if you ever look at one of those maps of the casualties, and you can also see how long it took the wave to get there. So it happened in Sumatra, but tens of thousands of people died in India, but the wave took hours, like over an hour to get there. So should have been plenty of time to warn people to just get away from the coast. And there are warning systems in the Indian Ocean now, but basically because of this disaster.
So here's the crazy. This is the thing that always boggles my mind about how just nutso of an earthquake this was. Along the fault where it occurred, like we said, we're just west of Sumatra. All right. So over about 1,600 kilometers, which is about 1,000 miles, that fault surface slipped 15 meters, or about 50 feet. So popped up 50 feet, like just like that in one earthquake event.
That's
so
crazy.
How many was that? Like about four stories? What's a story? Like a story is like 12 feet.
10 feet. Yeah.
10 feet. Okay. Well, then that's 5 stories then. Let's say 4 to 5 stories, just to play it safe. Imagine a 4 to 5 story building getting shot up underneath at the bottom of the ocean floor for 1,600 kilometers or 1,000 miles.
Yeah. Imagine you're on a baseball.
1,000 miles is from Atlanta to New York City.
Yeah. You're on a baseball field playing baseball, and then all of a sudden a 4-story building shoots up in front of you.
Yeah.
Just imagine the east coast of the US shooting up 50 feet. Actually,
I think it's probably from Atlanta to Boston. Anyways, it's a pretty long distance. All right. Like Jesse said, everything shoots up 50 feet. Right. So that's going to cause a heck of a tsunami. And it was just an absolute devastating tsunami. There's tons of YouTube videos out there of that tsunami. It's and there's some really, really graphic videos too of just
and just to be super clear, the 50-foot jump, that was the maximum, and as you go out from the center of that 1,000 feet, the fault moved less and less and less and less. So that always got me in structural geology, is like the fault breaks here, but as you go away from that main breaking, eventually you get to a point where there was no breaking. You get to the point where that if you think of it, of tearing a piece of paper in the middle and tearing it, at some point that piece of paper is still intact. It doesn't rip. It doesn't like break the earth and the whole thing cracks all the way around.
That's the other crazy thing, is to get into like the elastic properties of rock, which is like really, really hard. That for me is always really hard to comprehend. Because at one point, the fault has to stop, and there has to be some kind of, it's not just like the whole entire plate just snaps in half.
Right. So to think of Chris's analogy from Atlanta to Boston, in DC, you probably had that 50-foot difference, but as you get closer to Boston, as you get closer to Atlanta, that fault is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and that displacement is getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
So during the earthquake, that rupture didn't happen all at once. There's actually 2 phases that took several minutes for this rupture to occur. So the first phase involved a rupture that was about 400 kilometers long, or 250 miles ish, and 100 kilometers wide, all right, 60 miles wide. And that was 30 kilometers beneath the seabed. And it was the largest rupture ever known to have been caused by an earthquake. All right. That's just, the biggest rupture that humans have ever observed from an earthquake. All right. So, and then the second rupture happened after 100 seconds later. It was, geez. Yeah. It was
Indonesia's no joke, man.
Yeah. And so, I mean, we could talk about other volcanoes too. There's other famous volcanoes along there's tons of, famous volcanoes along Indonesia. Mount Tambora is down, that's kind of farther away. Krakatoa is Krakatoa at the bottom end of Sumatra, or the southern end of Sumatra, or is it the northern end of Java?
I was just wondering.
Western end of Java.
Yeah, Java, right?
Is it Java? I'm looking at a map and I can't really tell exactly.
I was thinking about that earlier.
There was another little fun fact about the indigenous peoples of Indonesia, and they've been passed down stories from generation to generation where if you feel an earthquake or if you see the sea recede, right? If the sea starts to go away, they were taught to run inland as fast as you can. And the amount of casualties for indigenous people was much, much lower because they all knew to do this. If they felt the earthquake and they ran, or they saw the sea recede and they ran.
Yeah. That's crazy.
And there's this awful story from I believe it was an Alaskan earthquake, but the tsunami hit Hawaii, and this was in the 50s, and it was in elementary school, and the sea started to recede, and all the little kids were looking out the window, and the teachers took them out to go see what was going on. And they all died.
That happened during the Boxing Day tsunami. Like you see it on the YouTube clips,
the videos. Yeah,
people just start like, oh, look what happened to the ocean. They all just kind of start running out there, and it's just like, oh no,
because you see fish flopping. Yeah, Krakatoa is literally between Sumatra and Java.
Yeah, I saw it on the Sundra Strait. Yeah, it's right in the middle. So
Krakatoa, that's the one where the ship people went mad, right?
Oh yeah, I was just going to tell that story. Yeah. So
what?
I think we talked about that in a previous podcast, I believe.
Well, it was a video that we were trying to do that never.
Oh, that's right. That's what it was.
Oh,
we should find that gem.
So Krakatoa is pretty wild. It was at the time it was the loudest sound when that volcano went off. It created the loudest sound ever recorded by that humanity's ever recorded.
It was heard in London.
Yeah, it was like crazy.
From Indonesia to London.
Yeah.
It's halfway around the planet.
It's ridiculous. When did that go off?
1883?
80, yeah.
I want to say 83.
That sounds right.
So there was an English ship in the area. I think that 1883, yeah. There was an English ship in the area, I believe, like 200-ish miles away. Does that sound about right? I don't remember exactly how far. It was far.
I don't know the story, so I'm on the
I think it was close enough where they could see the ash plume and stuff, and they heard the noise.
Well, yeah, and what happened was the shockwave hit them, and it ruptured their eardrums, the crew's eardrums on the ship, and like basically all their ears started bleeding, and they all went deaf.
Oh my gosh.
So,
but there's also like a captain's log where like most of the ship thought the world was ending and like started erupting into chaos, and like some people were just jumping overboard, other people's were, I don't know. It was pretty crazy account.
Yeah, they could measure the change in air pressure everywhere around the world. They essentially the shock wave from it went around the world like 3 or 4 times.
Wow.
And they could measure it all over Europe.
All right. So the British ship was 40 miles from the explosion.
Yeah, I thought it was closer than 200.
Okay.
Yeah, it was 172 decibels at 100 miles away.
That's crazy.
172 decibels is like being on the tarmac when a jet takes off.
Yeah, it says it's louder than a jet engine.
Yeah.
Yeah, 18 hours after the eruption, weather stations picked up the air pressure change in New York and Washington, D.C.
Wow. Yeah, that's don't mess with Mother Nature, man. That's you can't compete. There's like some crazy forces.
And Indonesia, it's beautiful. I don't think I want to live there.
It's too many volcanoes. What would you Flannelcasters. What would you be more scared of, the volcanoes or the earthquakes?
Earthquake.
I think I think the tsunamis, to tell you the truth.
Well, yeah.
You can't throw in a third option after you ask the question, Chris.
Yeah, that's
okay. I'm thinking on the fly here.
The old bait and switch.
But I mean, at least I feel like volcanoes do give you some warning.
Yes, I agree.
Earthquakes.
They're sneaky. They'll
They are
sneak
sneaky.
right up on you.
Yep.
And then the scariest thing with that tsunami. So just imagine, right? The Boxing Day tsunami. All right. You survive a 9.2 earthquake ish. All right. So, I think a lot of Indonesia does not have they don't have building codes that like California or the United States has, or like countries like Chile have,
or Japan has been engineering for it for centuries. Yeah.
Okay. So you're in a building and you survive this like horrendous 9 point whatever earthquake. Okay. So as long as the debris didn't hit you on the head or pin you down or something like that, you have that whole thing to deal with. Right. So you get out of that thing alive. All right. And I'm sure you're shocked. You're horrified and you're probably, you're not thinking straight. You don't know what the heck just happened. And then the wave comes.
Yeah.
And it's not just a wave. It's more of a surge of water. It comes and it doesn't stop. All right. And so now you got to deal with this water coming in, and it's not just the water. It's all the crap that water brings in, all of the debris. It's pulling cars with it. It's destroying buildings. You have, just construction debris that if you get in the water, that construction or whatever debris is in the water, that can pin you down and drown you. And then if you survive everything else, then that water eventually washes back out into the ocean.
Yeah, they have what are called run-up maps, and it shows you how far the tsunami actually went. And then once that water gets there, all that water is now uphill. So that water wants to come all the way back down. And the tsunami, when you drop a pebble in a pond, there's not just one wave. It's several waves, and the first wave might not even be the biggest wave.
So the one thing about tsunamis, it's not this cresting wave, this beautiful cresting wave that comes. I think there was a scene in the movie San Andreas. Spoiler alert, but San Andreas, like one of the worst movies ever made, right?
How dare you badmouth the Rock?
But it was like a train wreck. I couldn't stop watching it because I was so infuriated by just the blatant lack of care for non-scientific information. When that wave comes cresting over the Golden Gate Bridge, and it was just like, that's not how it happens.
Loved it. I loved the Rock going up it on a boat.
Yeah, man.
Great.
But then the other thing was the tsunami hit San Francisco. Now I haven't seen this movie in many years, so. From what I remember was the water stayed in San Francisco and it never receded. And I remember the Rock he was driving his boat around like the streets of San Francisco. It's like, no, the water recedes. I don't know how long I don't know off the top of my head how long.
No. That movie's totally scientifically accurate.
Okay.
Yeah.
San Francisco just sunk.
There was subsidence from the water, the weight of the water. Don't try and
No, you're right, Chris.
Glory or his valor here.
Yeah. Plus, not to mention the fact that San Andreas is a strike-slip fault, which would not really produce a tsunami.
That's a good point. I never thought of that.
Yeah, that's the main point. And it only goes even the strike-slip fault only goes underwater, like through the bay. It doesn't even. It's on land for most of it.
Yeah, the thing that causes the tsunamis is when the ocean floor kind of just juts up, like we said, for the Boxing Day tsunami, the parts of the ocean floor shot up 50 feet. All right.
Right.
And so what happens is that directly above on the surface of the water, it creates this bulge or this dome of water. And then all that dome then rushes out in, all directions away.
It wants to go to equilibrium again.
Yeah. And so the tsunami wave in deep water is going at like 700-ish miles an hour. It's pretty much hauling ass in the deep ocean, and it's not very tall. It's only like I believe off the top of my head, it's only like just a couple of feet, like 3 feet or so. Like the safest place to be when a tsunami hits is out in the middle of the ocean. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. The surge doesn't begin until it gets closer and closer to land.
That's where the name tsunami comes from harbor wave.
Yeah.
Because the Japanese fishermen will go out fishing and a tsunami would come and they wouldn't even notice it because out in the ocean, like it just passes under you so quickly and it's such a small wave height. But they would come back into harbor, back into port, and the village would be gone. And they could see it washed away. And so they assumed the wave had formed in the harbor because they didn't feel it out in the ocean.
Ah, I didn't put that last part together. That's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not nice, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
So, all right, I have a pet peeve. All right. And I think it is a completely legitimate pet peeve.
What grinds your gears?
Hang on, let me get my sound effects up.
Yeah, new segment. Getting Chris fired up here. What grinds his gears?
You can't call a tsunami a tidal wave.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I know you know that, but there's a lot of people out there. You hear them say, "Oh, the tidal wave hit Indonesia or whatever." No. What's the root word for tidal wave? Tides, right? It's not. That's not what we're dealing with. The correct term. If you ever hear somebody say the earthquake caused the tidal wave, tell them that they're incorrect and let's stop this use. I don't know how this came about.
No, tell them to listen to the Geology Flannelcast,
Tell them
specifically this episode.
GeologyFlannelcast.com. All right. Order some merch, number one. All right. And then, then learn about the tidal waves. No, tidal waves. We do get areas where you do get legitimate tidal waves, like up in the Bay of Fundy has the largest tidal range on Earth, like 16 meters or something like that. It's crazy, but you actually see what they call the tidal bore, or it can be considered like the tidal wave coming in. And also in Indonesia, there is a spot where the tidal bore comes in and you can actually surf it. I think the record is somebody surfed it for over an hour of just the tidal bore coming in. But anyways, that's not a tsunami. So please do me a favor. After you tell like 15 other people to listen to the podcast, you tell them, if you ever hear somebody say the word tidal wave, just tell them, did it come from an earthquake? Or actually, you can also get a tsunami coming from a impact or a landslide as well. Landslides, but
I do have a question for you.
All right.
How do you spell tsunami?
With a T.
Do you know how to check your spelling in a Word document?
It's a very good segue.
Thank you. So speaking of Word documents, please check out www.formattingformula.com or YouTube/C/formattingformula. I say this because tsunami, it sounds like an S, but you spell tsunami TSUNAMI. And for those of you who are watching on YouTube, you see my eyes go over because I'm a terrible speller. I'm an absolute terrible speller. So I have it up on my screen to make sure I spelled it correctly. But that's what makes Word so fantastic is, you type it in and it pops right up. But the formatting formula has taught me, like, when you're writing something like a resume or a personal statement, when you're trying to get a job, you want that zhuzhed up. Well, you can click on words, go to synonyms, find synonyms. The formatting formula has taught me so very, very much. Excuse me. I feel like I'm going to sneeze and I apologize for that. But so check them out. YouTube/C/formatting formula. They essentially teach you how to do it yourself. Or if you're crazy lazy like me, you can contact them, tell them the Geology Flannelcast sent you, and they can fix your document. They can zhuzh it up. They can fix your table of contents. They can format it. They even like customize the toolbars at the top for very specific stuff that you do. If you do something over and over and over, like a repetitive form or something like that, they can make the form, like they can do everything. So please check them out. Tell them the Geology Flannelcast sent you. Formattingformula.com.
Steve, I have a question for you.
Shoot.
Twice you said zhuzh it up.
Yeah. If you don't know what that means, type it in Word and hit synonym.
I don't think that you can find that in Word though. I've used context clues to figure out what exactly you mean there, but
All right. Drop us a line and send us an
Spit up?
email at Geology Flannelcast. Do you know what zhuzh means? Yes or no? If
How
I
do you
were to
spell
say
that?
zhuzh it up.
Yeah, how would you spell that?
I just
Zhuzh.
got done. We just did a whole commercial about how I can't spell. Now you're asking me to spell something?
If you were to put it in Word and have Word check, you know what? Here we go.
J-U-S-G-U, I don't know. Zhuzh.
It sounds like it's French.
Yeah.
Zhuzh. Here we go. You know, I'm not even doing this. Why am I doing this? I can hear all of us typing right now.
I found, did you find the spelling? It's insane.
No, spell it.
What letter do you think it starts with?
I started with G and no.
I started with
D?
Z.
Z-H-U-Z-H.
Zhuzh it up. There it is.
I would have never.
How did you find that?
And thank you very much. It is in the Merriam-Webster dictionary.
Yeah,
hold on.
I typed J-U-S-H it up, and Google did the hard work.
So look at me and my extensive
with 2 L's
vocabulary.
here, too.
Okay, just because you don't know a word, don't mock the man who says it.
Yeah.
Check yourself,
you can
Chris.
spell it Z-H-O-O-S-H too.
Z-H-O-O-S-H.
Yeah.
Zhuzh.
But zhuzh is Z-H-U-Z-H.
Z-H-U-Z-H?
Yes.
Or you can spell it. This is blowing my mind. T-S-Z-U-J.
Where'd you
I'm just saying letters right now.
Okay, this is not. Why isn't this showing up on my? Okay, thank you everybody for listening to the Geology Flat.
Listen, I'm in the Cambridge Dictionary right now. Zhuzh, Z-H-U-Z-H.
Yeah.
Also Z-H-O-O-Z-H or Z-H-O-O-S-H. Zhuzh. To make something more interesting or attractive by changing it slightly or adding something to it. Like I said, you want to zhuzh up your resume. This is how you do it.
What's
formattingformula.com.
What's the country of origin?
I don't know. Hang on.
When did it come about? What year? Use it as well, I guess you're using it.
Word origin is Polish.
Oh, I could see that.
I want to say if I'm reading this correctly here. And it's a relatively new word.
Here's an example.
20th century.
The former New Inn now boasts a zhuzhed up beer garden. That's an example in the dictionary. Zhuzhed. So it can be a verb.
If it involves a beer garden, that means the hipsters invented the word, right?
Oh, sorry. No, I was wrong. It wasn't Polish. I read this properly. It's Polari, which is a form of British slang.
See, I'm just a sophisticated Brit. What can I say?
English-based cant, which is a jargon or language.
You've never heard the word zhuzh before?
No, I've never heard that before.
Really?
I've never heard that before.
You don't run it. You don't run in the right circles, I guess.
I guess. Yeah.
You
Man,
need to zhuzh up your vocabulary.
So back to this. Okay. Now that nobody's listening now at this point in the podcast, back to this Cinebong volcano, man. Jesse, I'm looking at that Twitter link. I just retweeted it on our Twitter account.
Cool.
The CBS News thing you sent of Cinebong.
It's pretty impressive.
A big freaking ash cloud, man.
Yeah.
Like, sheesh, oh me's. So if you're ever in an area where there is, you see this a lot, areas like proximal to the volcano erupting, it almost looks like when that ash falls to the ground, it looks like snow. So it's not snow, it's ash. And the main difference is snow is just frozen water. All right. Ash is microscopic glass. All right. So the point I'm trying to make is you don't want to be breathing that garbage in. Okay. Because what happens is that microscopic glass gets in your lungs and then it just acts like small microscopic razor blades, right? And it's really not good for your lungs. It clogs up cars. Like cars can't run once they get inundated with that ash.
Airplanes, helicopters,
yeah.
My favorite story about this was when Mount Redoubt erupted in 1989.
The commercial airliner.
Yeah, the airliner that flew through the ash cloud, and it basically chewed up the engines, and both engines went out, and it went from 30,000 feet to 10,000 feet in like 2 minutes before they could get the one engine restarted, and then they landed.
They landed on one engine, I guess.
But can you imagine? Holy moly!
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know anything about aviation, right? But did the pilot not see the ash cloud?
No, and that's the thing. When you're up in the high altitude, the ash is sort of dispersed. That's why after when the Icelandic volcano.
Not going to try to pronounce it?
Now I'm worried about our friend from the YouTube comments.
Our Icelandic friend.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yes, it shut down air traffic for 6 weeks or something, right?
6 weeks, and it was all over Eastern Europe, and it wasn't just the visible, because it gets up, say, in the upper parts of the troposphere, and it becomes really tough to see because it's so dispersed.
I didn't realize that part. Okay.
Yeah.
I just figured it'd be like a giant column, but you're right. That makes sense. I was just assuming it'd be like a giant column, and and some cowboy pilots like, here we go, lock and load, baby.
Hold on to your seats.
But a little more locally too. Not only is it bad to breathe, but water has a density of 1 gram per centimeter cube. The ash is rock. It's heavier.
Yeah.
It's like 2.5 times the density. So if you have an inch of ash on your roof, that's the same thing as having half a foot of snow on your roof. So, and now it also packs differently and things like that, but that what happens sometimes is it actually collapses people's roofs because the weight of the ash is so much that it's just too heavy. And especially in places like Indonesia, they're worried about rain. Their building codes aren't worried about snowfall. Like if you live in the Northeast or something like that, your roofs are pitched steeper or they're just more robust, so they can handle that
Buffalo,
weight of the snow.
You got 10 feet of snow sitting on top of your roof.
Yeah.
I got a question, and borderline, I should know the answer to this, but I don't. I was wondering if you guys knew the answer. Pompeii, right? How did those bodies, what happened with the eruption of, do any of you guys know what happened with the eruption of Pompeii and how those bodies got preserved?
It was a pyroclastic flow.
It was pyroclastic flow?
Yes,
Yeah.
Pyroclastic flow.
Yeah.
And so when I think of pyroclastic flow, like I always think of like, we've told the story before about on the crafts, Maurice and Katja Craft. They got nailed by that pyroclastic flow and Mount Unzen in Japan, right?
Yeah.
So what, I guess so I guess in Pompeii, how did those bodies get preserved? Because I would have thought that, was it just like further away from the mountain to where
the body themselves wasn't preserved?
Well, I know the body wasn't. Yeah, it was like a cast.
We had a news story a little while ago where actually they just imaged somebody's brain because their brain actually turned to glass.
The brain boiled and like crazy stuff.
So that's kind of, you're essentially making a cast.
A cast, okay.
And it dumped a ton of ash on top of it. Mm-hmm. So it got preserved in the sense that it sort of locked everything in. The ash.
Okay. So there was basically an airtight ash layer on top of that pyroclastic flow.
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay. That was the one thing I never really fully understood how that worked, because you would think that they'd just be like,
and it's awful
vaporized
too, because you can see like it was so hot that their blood boiled and their heads, like the top of their heads exploded and stuff because the pressure needed to go somewhere.
But then there was also that pyroclastic flow in Japan a couple years back where people actually the hikers. Maybe it wasn't what was the deal with the?
That might have been a lahar.
No. It wasn't a lahar. It was there were some hikers in Japan, and the volcano burped, and you just saw this ash. It probably wasn't a pyroclastic. Oh, I guess it was just like an ash. The ash cloud came at them, and they kind of hid behind some boulders and obviously survived that. But
yeah, because pyroclastic flows are like 1,000 degrees.
Yeah. Nui Ardent, glowing cloud. You know, like it's really, really hot stuff. So
I think it was just a little ash burp.
Yeah, that makes more sense. Yeah.
If you listen real close, the mountain says, "Pardon me." Where's that cricket sound?
Hold on.
No. Anyway, so, Indonesia, not a good place to live.
Well, you can't say that, but it just has its natural disasters. You could say California, not a good place to live.
I would say that too. Although some of our patrons might be angry with us. We were having a discussion about In-N-Out Burger earlier. So, no, I do feel slightly spoiled in that, tectonically speaking, I'm in a pretty inert position on the planet. But
well, I forget if I've told the story on the podcast before, but back in 2011, there was an earthquake in Virginia, and
5.8.
Yeah, Mineral, Virginia, which is I guess like 100-ish miles away from Washington, D.C. And I was living in Northern Virginia, just a couple miles outside of D.C. at the time. I literally had just moved there. I was living there for 2 weeks, and that earthquake hit. And I just remember my house. I lived in a 1-story rancher. I rented a room in this 1-story rancher, and the whole house started shaking like crazy. And I was like, what is this? This is nuts. And I thought the air conditioning unit was going to explode in the house. I ran outside, and you could feel the ground shaking. And it, I've been in the area where buildings have been imploded. That's what I'm looking for. When you're nearby a building that implodes, you can feel the ground shaking. So I was like, wow, that's the first thing that popped in my head was it feels like, there's this building that imploded. And I was like, there must be like a gas explosion or something. I thought of everything. And then because at the time I was living 15 miles outside of DC, and I thought like, oh, terrorist attack. Like, did DC just get nuked? Like, this is like
so 18 different things before you went to earthquake.
18. And my neighbor comes running outside. He goes, we're having an earthquake. And I go, no, we're not. I'm a geologist. We don't get earthquakes like this on the East Coast. Well, my neighbor was right. And at the time was a PhD student. The geology PhD student was dead wrong. It was just crazy because it just wasn't in my, I wasn't thinking earthquakes. I'd never felt anything like that on the East Coast before. And it was a pretty wild experience. And then I remember the next night I was sleeping at 3:00 in the morning. I was woken up by an aftershock, and it had I just remember the way that my house was shaking. It was just like, it was a shake like I've never heard. It was just like a shake, like this thing's coming down. I remember hearing that same exact shaking feel again at 3:00 in the morning the next day when one of the aftershocks hit. It was just creepy. Eerie and creepy is the best way to describe that aftershock. But I'm an East Coaster, and I've never been exposed to that stuff before ever. So there's my earthquake story about how it was a big swing and a miss for me.
Yeah. I think in a later episode we could discuss why East Coasters felt it more, and it's not just because we don't have as many.
Well, it's more crystal and rock associated with the Appalachian, the Piedmont of the Appalachians. It was just able to kind of move out more.
Yeah, it's like dinging a bell.
Yeah. So does that ruin your idea for a podcast in the future?
I guess so. It'd be a very short podcast. I was going to go into it a little bit more. You stinker, but because I don't think we've done one exclusively on earthquakes, have we?
We had to have covered earthquakes. If not, this podcast pretty much covers.
Well, that's
actually,
true.
It does. Well, there's a lot more to go into with earthquakes than this.
Yeah. So it's from what I'm recollecting, I don't think we did one specifically on earthquakes.
No kidding.
I think we should in the future, but
oh my God, it's absolutely. We should.
No, that's a lie. I totally lying. We did one. We did one about specific earthquakes in with Kelly Blake out in California.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So we did cover some of the basics then, but maybe not a whole. Yeah. So I apologize. We did do one with Kelly.
We should. Yeah, we should. I don't know how to. Wow, that one kind of slipped through the cracks. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of our news stories was earthquake tracking the Fermi paradox and the Drake equation. So that may have been that was a pretty heavy episode.
That was a little more recent. That was in the last couple months we did that one.
That was September. So 4 months ago.
Yeah, September.
Yeah, the Kelly Blake one was back in May, so a little less than a year ago.
Yeah. Kelly tweeted at us that she was upset that she's tied with Matt Sophie. She's a little firecracker. I love her.
Listen, you don't want to upset the captain.
No, you don't. Oh man, I bet you she's just sitting there. What was that website? She goes, Perez Hilton. She loved checking up on Perez Hilton every morning. I come in back when Kelly and I. I was.
Let's not badmouth one of our featured guests.
I'm not bad mouthing her. I just one of my fondest memories of Kelly is every morning. I not every morning, but I always catch her. That was like her guilty pleasure was looking at Perez Hilton. There's nothing wrong with that,
No, I remember when she was in grad school. That girl worked hard.
Very hard worker.
I'll give her some Perez Hilton time.
All right. Any final words on Mount Cinebong
and Indonesia in general? We covered more than just Mount Cinebong, I feel.
Yeah,
yeah.
Oh, you know what I wanted to talk about?
I'm excited to hear this.
Yeah. M&Ms, am I right?
What's the deal with M&Ms?
Yeah.
No. So the island arc systems, I've been reading about this a fair amount. The island arc systems of Indonesia is kind of comparable, I think, to what later became, honestly, California. So California we could do a whole episode on this about exotic terrains that make up California, but they feel that one of the things to compare, like when you think about like when California was being assembled, they say all this like exotic terrains and microcontinents and picocontinents, even like smaller. Like really, really small, like basically just tectonic plates and stuff like that. They feel that at one point the coast off of California looked very similar to what Indonesia looks like today, just with a crap ton of like small islands and all these island arc systems. And that's California eventually was just kind of assembled with all these exotic terrains that just plastered onto North America and got sutured on, and that's California. And I always wonder if maybe just as an East Coaster, we talk about the tectonic orogeny, or the first, you could say, like the first mountain building event of the Appalachians. Throwback to episode 2 of the podcast, right? Talk about volcanics off the coast of Laurentia, which later became North America, but the old school name for North America before it was North America. But I kind of often wondered, maybe it was like you see these diagrams like with like one single like island arc system slamming into North America. But I often kind of wondered, like, maybe it was a little more like Indonesia, or something like that, with like just lots and lots of islands out there. But thought experiment,
Yeah, could be.
But anyway, so just wanted to kind of throw that out there too. eventually, if you want to talk about like, where all this exotic terrain came from, from making up California, think of like Indonesia. And that's, it's all this stuff from these island arc systems. You're making, essentially, new continent or, continental crust kind of with, from the volcanic activity. And then eventually that stuff slams into continents and you get continental accretion.
Huh.
I like it.
Sure. Why not?
I'm sold.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So, I say we should wrap it up at that point. Thanks everyone for listening to this episode 84 of the Geology Flannelcast. Guys, we're gonna have to start talking about episode 100 pretty soon, and that's gonna be a humdinger. We shouldn't hold anything. We shouldn't hold anything back for episode 100.
Can't hold anything back now, Cotton.
We really need to make it count.
I mean, episode 100, that's just 15 weeks away. So, anyways, crickets chirping right there.
No, by then maybe it'll be safe to travel and we could be in person or something.
Man, if we could do an in-person episode for
it's in the summertime. So
episode 100, yeah.
All vaccinated up.
Yeah, I did it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, Steve just took one for the team. Team player right there.
Anywho's, all right. Well, thank you everybody for listening. We really, really appreciate it. Again, check us out at www.geologyflannelcast.com. Wherever you get your podcasts, please become a Patreon and help support the podcast so Chris can get his fancy new mixer so he can mock me more in real time. So on the Patreon site, if you'd like to help us out, become a Patreon subscriber. There's a couple different tiers, starting the lowest one starting as little as $2 a month, and that helps out a lot. If you become a $2 a month member, we'll throw in some stickers, as a little thanks for helping us out. For $2 you get a sticker.
I give more than a sticker.
Oh right? Man, you're so generous.
Cheapskate.
I'm telling
you. But if you become that's the $2 a month member is called a talc member. It goes by Mohs hardness scale. Next up, if you want to become a quartz tiered member, I know we skipped a couple minerals between talc and quartz, but get at me. For $5 a month, you can hang out with us. We had some, like Steve was saying, we had some really fun conversations about In-N-Out Burger today before the podcast started. Very
amongst other things, yeah.
Amongst other things, and I don't know, it's just fun. We got some really, really awesome, people that sponsor us on Patreon that come hang out every week, and really, really cool group. So if you'd like to come and join the group, there's always that. If you become
the unobtainium level, you can move in with Chris.
I have to run that by my significant other, but okay. Anyways, so anyway, that's Patreon, geologyflannelcast.com. We got some cool merch on there, t-shirts, coffee mugs. Allegedly, the Geology Flannelcast coffee mug may or may not make your coffee taste at least 20% better.
That's what I've heard, 20%.
That's the word on the street. Your coffee will just taste that much better. So we got I got coffee mugs on there, Geology Flannelcast t-shirts, hoodies, and then you could also just get some stickers too. All that helps us out too, keeping this podcast up. And so that's at geologyflannelcast.com. And then
Twitter, Facebook,
YouTube,
Instagram.
Yeah, so subscribe to all that stuff. If you still want to, if you maybe you're not able to help us out financially, just tell a friend or like us or leave a review on iTunes, all that stuff. That helps out a ton too. So subscribe to us on YouTube, all that stuff. That helps out. You don't even have to financially
and
help
it's
us out.
March Mayhem, because I don't want to get sued.
March
Mayhem.
March craziness.
Yeah,
craziness.
We're so crazy. You have to tell all your friends about us.
So that's my goal for next week. We'll have to see how we can work this out. But the brackets.
Yeah, I was thinking about that today.
Yeah. Mineral Madness. Thank you, Maddie. Thank you very much. Mineral Madness. So also our Patreon friends, they hang out for the live recording of the podcast and they send us cool little chats.
Yes.
Fun little blurbs like that. Thank you very much, Patty.
Yeah, usually they're awesome. Sometimes
they're always awesome. They're always
hysterical, and sometimes they're so heartwarming I cry a little. So
doesn't take much to get the waterfalls flowing.
No, it doesn't.
Steve, but...
That's a true story.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this officially ends episode 84 of the Geology Flannelcast. Thank you so much for listening for the episode. We love you guys. And we will see you guys next week with another action-packed episode of the Geology Flannelcast. Signing out, I'm Chris.
I'm Steve, and long pause.
I'm Jesse.
There's the pause. I'm going to edit that out. I'm sick and tired of his pauses.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Love you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for stopping. Bye.
I